Yeah, no one to blame but myself, so I apologise to the whole team and to Oscar as well for attempting something probably a bit too silly.
It was inevitable, and it's finally happened. The McLarens have collided, and one came out a complete loser out of this situation. The Canada GP was quite the fun one. There was a lot of overtaking, different strategies. Per usual, this track has delivered. The qualifying itself was very fun. Kimi finally found himself back up and had quite the outstanding race. I definitely want to mention him a lot in this video as well. And while it was a slow burner with everybody kind of reserving tires, especially the top 5, every car had the pace to go for victory. The McLaren, the Mercedes, probably even the Red Bull. With George and Max at the top, we knew it was going to be fun. But obviously, the biggest thing was the McLaren drivers colliding after what felt like a decade of them not even being close to each other. It was always a 3 to 4 second gap in each of these GPs. It happened, it was inevitable, let's talk about it. But real quickly, thank you guys all for the support on the website and in general on the channel. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. You guys truly mean the world and make my day reading your guys' comments. Let's get started with the race review of the Canadian 2025 GP. I mean, the thing everybody was talking about coming here into Canada that was overblown so much was Max Verstappen's penalty points. And yes, the guy was one off, but it's not like he gets penalty points in every single GP. That was an extreme case there in Spain because of him losing his head. So I don't think we were going to see that again. Maybe George was going to be a bit more aggressive and try and push it out of him, but they were never close enough to really see what was going to happen between the two of them. Awesome race start by George, but even better by Kimi, who made an overtake on Oscar to solidify that final position. I mean, just a stat, the guy was scoreless in the triple header we had previous to this Canada GP, and he comes out swinging to be the 3rd youngest podium setter. I mean, well done, Kimi. What a race by the guy. Alex Albon also had quite the GP himself. He pushed it wide here, which was completely unnecessary from his end. He would have probably overtaken the Alpine at some point. Franco had quite a good weekend. I think we got to give him a round of applause as well, as it's been very tough. The pressure's been on him, and he did a good job. It's been a good weekend. If he can continue to do this and really be the better of the two, that's going to play a big part into his career, because we saw these flashes in 24. Now we finally saw something in 25, so well done to Colapinto. Now in the beginning of the race, Max was very close. There were a couple of times where he almost threw it up on the inside, but it wasn't like a real move, just a little bit of threat to see if he can put George off of the racing line. But George held his own. I mean, we've seen it in previous GPs before. He has had his fair share of mistakes that he's made, like in Singapore in 2023, but also like in Brazil in 2022, a lot of the times when he is leading, he is doing a good job. He failed in Canada in 2024, but today he capitalized, and you got to give it to him. What a race by George. I do think Lando throughout the race was making up good positions. He had very fast pace. Starting off in the hard almost seemed like the correct call because of how much pace was really there. The degradation was pretty heavy, and as you can always see, the top 10 typically go for a 2-stop strategy, but anybody behind the top 10 that goes for those extreme strategies is typically a 1-stop. You never really know what's going to work better here in Canada, but that's exactly how the Pirelli tires should work. It's tough to adjust. The strategy is a big factor in these races. So if it's right on that edge of if a 1-stop or a 2-stop is better, that is when we get the best Formula 1 racing. I hope Pirelli can see this race and try and almost emulate this at every GP we go to. Naturally, that will not happen, as some GPs just do not have the degradation or potential to go for a 2-stop. But it was nice to see a nice strategy game here in Canada, per usual. And right as we see those first pit stops, on lap 12, Max makes his way in. It almost looked like Antonelli was going to overtake him. I think he probably would have with another lap to go, but Red Bull, as they always do, have a very good strategy and make it work. They were the first to stop on this 2-stop, and then plenty of other teams followed after. George went for another 2 laps. He stayed a good amount ahead of Max. It was clear he had the pace and the clean air to really just get ahead and keep about a 2-second gap that whole GP. As I stated earlier in the video, Lando was making up places, and he did do a very good job of making his way into that top 5 fight before tragedy happened for him. There were a couple of ambitious moves in the hairpin, not as much as we typically see. Sainz had quite the dodgy one, might I add, but actually quite a good GP considering where he started from. As I stated earlier, it was horrible for Albon. He got put on a bad strategy. It just went bad from lap 1 all the way till when he retired in the race. But the race itself was a bit stagnant. We saw a lot of overtakes, but it was kind of that mid-drought that we always typically get with these Formula 1 races. Fernando was making up a lot of positions, which was fun to see. He had quite a good GP himself, finishing in P7. Nico, again, the Saubers in the points. Wow, a much better car. That is a very good look for them. And as I stated, a couple of strategy gambles that ended up paying off towards the end of the GP. But on those last stops, around lap 56, where it was about a 4-second gap between Russell, Verstappen, Antonelli, Piastri, and Norris, this is when everything came alive and it truly became a fun time and it had you on the edge of your seat. What's going to happen? The McLaren boys are next to each other. And it's been a long time. We've seen them next to each other, but no type of collisions, not really much racing in general. There's always that really dirty air that ends up not really making it an interesting fight amongst the two of them. And in the same car, they're very close in pace. I will say this, Lando was quicker. It was pretty obvious to see that he was the faster of the two in the race, which seems to be the trend continuously amongst these two. Oscar has the qualifying, stays ahead because of the clean air, and then Lando just can't catch him, even though he does have about a 1/10 of a gap in race pace and just controls those tires much better. Now, this is due to experience as well. But with that being said, I do think Piastri amongst the two of them has the better racecraft, and he's in his head now. I think it's pretty clear to see that Oscar, he's got him right where he wants him, keeping him in control. They were catching Kimi at the same time, but Oscar didn't have the pace to go and overtake Kimi in the faster Mercedes, but Lando was stalking behind that whole time. And I want to say, that move into the hairpin by Lando was a beauty, and when I saw him pulled it off, it reminded me a lot of 23, where he was making so many overtakes down into that hairpin. He had quite a good GP here in 24, and it was nice to see some clean battling in a spot where it's all about the braking and confidence. Lando makes the overtake, but a nice little switchback done by Oscar puts them head to head going into the last very crucial wall to champions corner. And Lando actually does end up getting ahead, but he's on the outside line, so naturally Oscar will end up overtaking him. But Lando sets himself up into a position where he's going to have the slipstream going down into that first corner. And instead of taking the right side that was completely open, he goes on the left, thinking there is a little bit of a gap, clips his front wing under his rear tires, and that's Lando's race finished. A guy fighting for the championship ends up with 0. The current championship leader, Oscar, still finishes with 12 points, finishing in P4, where Lando is now probably taking this very badly, as this is probably the worst thing that could have happened to him in what was already a very weak weekend for him, finishing behind an Aston Martin in qualifying. It just wasn't a good look, and it ends up like this. Now, I don't think there's much debate. Lando himself even knew that this was a mistake that he made. Very reminiscent of an incident that happened 14 years ago with Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton. But as Julian Palmer pointed out, I think that was much more easier to see that Button really pushed him in. This was Lando making the mistake, thinking there was a gap when there wasn't. Now, having the inside on turn 1 is extremely important, but he finished his race here, clipping the rear tires. The misjudgment of how big his car was what ended up ultimately finishing his race. It's going to be a real dent into that championship now. Oscar's going to start running away, and a guy with this mentality, cold as ice, just locked in. It's going to be tough for Lando to make it back unless he can fix a few things. Now, I do want to add, it was great of Lando to just get on the radio right after, mention that it was completely his mistake and his bad. I think it's a big sign of growth from him, and it's a good thing that he can do that, get on the radio, say that. Hopefully this recovery process from this incident will be now quicker because he knows he made the mistake. He can now work on his racecraft, really get into a good mental zone for the next couple of GPs because he's going to need it. He's pretty far behind now. And then at the very end of the race, which I found hilarious, was Max and George, per usual, next to each other saying Verstappen overtook me onto the safety car, Max saying something about abrupt braking. I mean, these guys, what a show. We need to see them two in the best cars. Just put them out in the front, P1, P2 every race. Formula One would be so entertaining every single race. These guys are such hot competitors, and I love it. I love seeing this level of competitiveness amongst the two. They're just out to get each other. And while it might seem like these guys just truly dislike each other off the track and so on, I think they have a level of respect that they're like, you know what, this guy's good, but I feel like I'm even better than him. It's very good to see these two together. It almost seems like fireworks every single time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments below. It was a good Canada GP. Leave some comments. Tell me what you guys think of Kimi's performance. Definitely deserves driver of the day. I would debate that Fernando's up there as well. Max had a good time. Same with George. A lot of good drivers of the day, but the third youngest podium sitter, they got to give it to the Italian. Good job. What a jump back from a horrible triple header. Thank you guys for support. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.